Hi, my name is Michael Wright. I'm with Twill. I'm here with, I need to confirm, Scott. Is it Fricke or
Fricke,
Frick?
yep. That is
Fricke?
Fricke, yep.
Okay. Hey, everyone, I'm Michael Wright with Twill. I'm here with Scott Fricke today on the podcast to discuss some very new and interesting approaches to merchant services. Scott's been in the industry a long time. Thank you for taking some time today. Really appreciate it, Scott.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good to be here, Michael.
I think we'll start. Why don't you give us just a brief history, how you got into the industry, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually kind of funny story. Yeah, I was boy, how far back to go? I was living in Minneapolis primarily, and then I was pulled up here to Thief River Falls for a consulting gig, which then turned into a long-term employment opportunity. Um, and I picked up a couple of rental houses, but then the management changed, and I was railroaded, and suddenly found myself without a job. Didn't really want to go back to the cities. I really liked the small town of Thief River Falls, and like I said, I had a couple rental properties here. So I just kind of went online and started searching, and I found merchant services. You know, of course, there's probably plenty of advertisements out there for it. But I thought with my background in technology and sales, I've got an engineering degree, material science and engineering, which I never really used. And then I sold real estate, had a real estate brokerage for about 10 years or so. So I got a lot of sales training. And I just thought that it would be a really good fit. And especially in the rural areas where, there's not a lot of people doing that sort of thing. So I was kind of right. I signed up with a company and had 8 new customers within the first week. So
Wow.
it was pretty easy. Um, but the company that I signed up with, that I found out would turn around and overcharge all those customers, and they're eventually outlawed from the state of Minnesota by the
Wow.
Secretary of State. Yeah, so that company
Okay.
didn't last real long, and managed to save most of those original customers and get them moved over to the next company that I worked with. But I just started selling and started in Thief River Falls, and when I'd sold all Thief River Falls, then I moved out to the next small town, and in each direction. Every day I'd go another direction, and built a merchant services business. Um, at that point, there was a guy in town who was selling point of sale systems. Um, and so I talked with him. We ended up merging the companies, and I got into the point of sale business. Um, and let's see, we were doing that, and I was shipping and receiving a lot of equipment at that point in time. And the guy who was running the pack and ship in town called me up one day and said, "I'm shutting it down. It's not a profitable enough business for me." And I hung up the phone. And at that point, I had one assistant. When we're both working from our homes, and I'm like, she needs a little more to do, and I could use an office. So I called him back and I'm like, what if I bought that pack and ship from you? And we put Lindsay in there, and that way then she kept busy doing packages and then otherwise helping me. That was kind of the start of it. And after I bought the pack and ship, then the guy who had the printing shop in town gave me a call and said, what you really need is a commercial printing business.
Of course.
And he had a bigger building. So I basically got the printing business for the cost of the building, which made a lot of sense at that time too. And so we just kind of started putting the pieces together. And before too long, I had a shipping and printing business with merchant services, point of sale. And that's kind of where we are today. Moved from that building to a larger one, but generally that's what we're doing now.
Okay. So you've got a few things going on, and
That's
we'll
the background.
we'll we'll definitely get into that. You
Yeah.
you started as an agent, were
Yeah.
successful very quickly. But you mentioned, you moved beyond that thinking fairly quickly. What changed your view over the years on how to approach this business?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it was really well. It was pretty early in in the career, you're an agent and you're selling and you're working for that company. And I
Mhm.
think it was when that company called me up and said, "Hey, we're gonna drop you because we're getting kicked out of Minnesota." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then I go to another company. And so at that point, I kind of realized that, even so, these contracts are non-exclusive. So I just started shopping around and then realized that I was really just a free agent in charge of my own business, and
Mhm.
that those customer relationships were mine, and my job, at least in my mind, is to represent, right, and bring those people a solution that's going to work for them. So yeah, I think that's kind of where it changed my perspective, and I realized that I really was in business on my own. Nobody else was going to take care of me.
Yeah.
Um, I wasn't just an employee anymore. But like I said, I'd owned a real estate brokerage in the past, so I've been used to being a business owner. Um, and I clearly prefer that to being an employee. So it just made sense to start treating it as a business as opposed to a job.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. Most people, I think, get into payments because they want to run their own business.
Hmm.
But I think you bring up a very good point that some, I won't say most, some don't have that context where
Hmm.
they're very much in this highly focused, I'm a payments agent and I
Right.
work for this ISO kind of.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and they don't think it holistically as a business.
Hmm.
Um, and that it helps you think creatively, I think.
Hmm. Yeah.
You once you think about this as what do I really own, and I like this, is I own the relationship.
Right.
Well, then it opens up a lot of possibilities for you.
Right. I think it was that early experience where the customers did not get treated well, and then I had to step up and try to save those relationships because I mean they were looking at me as if, I did it. And it's like, no, it's not me. It's not me.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately that we are the front person for the relationship, and you,
Hmm.
you and you do have to take responsibility.
Hmm.
But I also I like taking care of people, right? So that's part of why I'm in the business.
Yeah, it's that personal aspect. Quickly, let's touch on that because I'm sure, I've experienced that in the past. I'm sure a lot of people have. What, how did that change how you view your processing relationships? Is there something that you do differently now that you still do, or have you been with your relationships now for that whole time and they've been great, or
Right, right. No, no, actually, I got into, from that first one, which was pretty rocky. The second one was pretty stable, and I w lasted a lot of years. They did something that I wasn't really excited about, but they were kind of jacking the rates just a little bit every 6 months.
mm,
Um,
hmm.
which wasn't great for the relationship, but it was good for my pocketbook. So I kind of lived with that for a while, and it wasn't too much, so it was manageable. It's really not a bad business decision overall. So
Hmm.
there's that, but then they sold out, and got bought out, and things went to hell, and and then suddenly people are getting greedy, or the company's getting greedy, right? And starting to take way more than they needed to, and damaging my relationships. So I went out and found another processor, which we had a really long, great relationship with, um, probably at least 8 years, and I had almost my whole portfolio with them, and um, and then they sold out,
They did.
and things went to shit. And
Mhm.
oh, can I say that? Yeah, there's a
Yeah, you can say
podcast.
that. Whatever you.
Yeah, and of course the new owners come in and start milking the
Mhm.
contracts, and I was really, really disappointed because that was a really great relationship. And you ask, I mean, what am I looking for, right? And to me, I'm kind of different because many of the processors are just looking for an agent will go out and do what they tell them to do, right? And
Right.
just do what we tell you to. We'll train you. You do exist and say exactly what we want you to say. But I really manage it differently, right? For me, the processor is working for me, and needs to deliver
Right.
a consistent product with, good service so that I can maintain my relationships.
Hmm.
Um, ultimately that's what's most important. It's good if you know, um, negotiate the payments, the split properly, really does help a little bit. But, ultimately what's most important is a service.
Hmm.
If somebody's equipment breaks and you can't get it replaced, again, you're the one who looks like a buffoon. So, I don't like that at all. So, I guess that's, the other pieces I think were a little bit different in the fact that it was that early relationship. So it was a processor where it was just kind of a bare bones, processor. And one of the first things was, oh, I got this new merchant. Can you build a file for me? And they're like, well, we don't build files for you. Here, we'll send you over to the Deja Vu portal. We'll give you a connection there. So we started building our own files. So at this point in time,
Right.
my relationship is basically, give me a var sheet. We'll build the files in house. It gives us a whole new level of control.
Yeah.
When something
Yeah.
needs to change, it's not that complicated. I can pop in, I can make the change to the file, and I'm not relying on a 3-day turnaround for something that takes 5 minutes.
Right.
Um, so I don't think there's a lot of agents out there who are that level, but that kind of steps me up into kind of a mini ISO. But I definitely don't want to be an ISO because I don't want a whole bunch of agents running around, reporting to me. I'd rather manage the control and do it myself and
Right. And
keep
I
it
think
tight to
that's
the vest.
a good segue into what I wanted to ask next, because
Yeah.
it sounds like, this aspect of control, I think, is really important.
A little
Um,
bit of a control freak. Yeah.
I mean, not just to you. I hear that across the board.
Hmm.
Everyone wants that control, but I think it does come with this extra layer of, I mean, you could say responsibility, but it's
Yes,
also
very much so.
more
Yeah.
work, right?
Yeah.
You're running support now.
Right.
And so
Yes.
from I know that you considered maybe even briefly becoming that more
Hmm.
traditional ISO,
I
and
I looked at it.
because
Um,
you're going in that direction, right? The
right.
more control you have over the things you're doing allow you
Right.
to expand and scale in that
Hmm.
way.
Right.
What are some of the things that kept you from doing that? I know you just, you said you didn't want a bunch of agents reporting to you, which I get.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but was
well,
there
when I
anything else?
had I had that conversation with the processor I was using at that time, and we had a really great relationship. I said, "Hey,
Mhm.
I'm thinking of going this direction. Can you help me understand the the parameters? What I would need to do, but just the volume it takes to negotiate directly with TSYS, Global Payments, or whoever they are right now, and First Data, or whoever they're called right now."
Yeah.
Um, and the volume required almost requires you to have a significant organization, sales organization.
Hmm.
And I looked at that and saying, that's just not the direction that I want to take my business.
Hmm.
And so it made more sense for me to remain as an agent. And most of the agent contracts are not exclusive, so I try to maintain a backup. And most recently, it was really good that I did, because I had this great relationship, and then someone talked me into talking to somebody else, and I let out the conversation, going, I don't think there's anything you can do for me at all, and I'm not interested. But they convinced me in giving it a try, and I kind of had them in my pocket, and then my primary relationship sold, and things
Ah,
went to hell. And
uh-huh.
thank God that I had the backup relationship. So yeah, I'm probably now on my, I guess I'm really only on my third major processing relationship at this point in time. Um,
That's for sure
yeah.
an anomaly, because most people I talk to, they're like, yeah, I hold on to about five or six different processing relationships right now,
Yeah.
right? Like, who
Yeah.
knows how many they've had over the last 10 years.
Yeah. Well,
So,
the challenge with that, I mean, real honestly, is, I mean, everyone is a different system. So, you
mhm.
know, maintaining multiple ones means you got to know which system you're with, and that's what I really dislike about my portfolio right now is it's split,
It's
among
totally.
all these legacy processors, and I'm just trying to clean that out so that when somebody calls, I actually know who who they're processing with and what their equipment is. And
Uh-huh.
over the years we didn't do a great job of keeping track of that stuff. I think we've got our database pretty tight now, but there's still surprises all the time.
Oh
Someone
yeah.
calls in, it's like, you have what equipment? When did you
Haven't
get
seen
that?
that one in a while. Are you sure you have ENV on that one?
Yeah, I could swear you had a Deja Vu Z8, but you're telling me you just got a PAX S80. I'm like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, well,
Um,
what? Are you sure?
yeah. Anyway,
That
funny.
I see that a lot too, and I feel like we could do a whole podcast on that because that's really interesting to me. That how there's no, I mean, there are some solutions out there that help you, but they're difficult and expensive. But
Hmm.
um, for another day, Scott.
Another day. We'll have
Yeah.
another conversation. Yeah.
The what I want to get into too, though. So we're here. You've got the control you want. You've got a good relationship.
Hmm.
Um, you don't want to be an ISO.
Hmm.
There's another path for you. And I think one of the important things here is that, you focus on small town merchants.
Right, right, right. I think
And
that is a difference for sure.
yeah, they where, relationships, I say relationships matter in payments all everywhere, but
Okay.
especially in small towns, right?
Well, that's the yeah. I mean, it's a regular line. I mean, you know where to find me, right? And if I do you wrong, you're going to co come and find me and tar and feather me and run me out of town. I mean, I know this is the way that it works, and especially in a small town, right? You can't just disappear, right? You can't just sell and disappear. And that's what a lot of the early relationships I had with some processors, right? That's that first one who got kicked out of Minnesota. That's what they wanted you to do is they didn't even want to give me a business card, right? They just wanted me to
Oh,
sell and disappear so then they could
get it in
milk
there so
that
they could jack the
and
rate.
they can milk it, right? They weren't
Uh-huh.
they weren't counting on somebody who was going to try to maintain a relationship.
Right. They were thinking very short term
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, and I was thinking obviously long term,
Yeah.
right? As I don't want to destroy those relationships because yeah, I've got merchants who've been with me from those, for 10 years now. From those first sales.
Mhm.
Um and that I in fact I can name a couple of them that came from, that I sold with that first company and then they got overcharged and I switched them. I've probably, switched them at least twice at this point in time to keep them safe and they're still with me.
That's a hard sell. That must
Yeah, that was hard. That was a
yeah,
hard discussion.
that's a hard
Yeah.
sell
Yeah,
after
you trusted me once, come trust me again.
yes.
That's a
Yes.
hard one.
That is. Kudos to you
Yeah.
for bringing those over.
Yeah.
Um, and that kind of moves into your current model. So let's
Hmm.
dive into that because I
Yeah.
love it. I think it's brilliant.
All right.
There's reasons why I think it's difficult for a large processor or a tech platform to get into these small towns. And
Hmm.
it's not just the relationship aspect. You know, it's hard to, it's not scalable
Hmm.
necessarily
Right. Right.
for them to
Right.
come in here and do that.
And let's be honest, the volumes are smaller,
Yeah, they're smaller.
right? So your revenue, it's just not high revenue per merchant like you would see in cities, any reasonable size city per se.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so that was really my challenge is how do I make this worthwhile, right? And the reality is that I've been stewing on this for a decade of how do I make this sustainable? Um, and at first I thought the regular, sort of model is I'd find somebody in each of these small towns to be my sales rep, but the problem is there's not enough volume to really support, and the support side of it is very sporadic. So you don't need someone all the time. You only need somebody once in a while. So
Hmm.
I'm not going to pay someone a salary to sit there most of the time and do nothing. So and these towns are so spread out. Um, that's why I don't want to do it. I'm driving everywhere trying to, and there's so much travel time that kills your profitability too.
Right.
So that's where, you know, um, I mean, merchant services is where the money is, clearly.
Mhm.
Sh a shipping store and commercial printing, let's be honest, commercial printing is not a growth industry right now. There's a million websites you can go to and get your stuff printed for really cheap, right? So
Yeah.
small town commercial printers are not really a growth industry. And I was treating them like, yeah, and I got these stores, right?
Yeah.
But my big aha moment was, wait a minute, everybody in town doesn't know me for my merchant services. They know me for my store,
Mm.
and they recognize my store. So that's where our strategy right now, and we just put our first store this week
Congratulations.
in a town just an hour north of us, right? And so, but then I'm paying the salary of the person in the store, the shipping and the printing revenues. I basically, assuming this works out the way that it has in my current town, basically pays the salary of the person in the store. They've got a full-time job. The revenues are at least paying their salary. Maybe I make a little bit of money. It's not huge. But now when something breaks in Roseau, um, I can call my person at the store and say, "Hey, just close the store for 5 minutes. Could you run over there and take a look at it?" Right?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
saves me an hour drive each direction, or one of my technicians, right? Um, so that's the magic. And I can just have somebody needs new hardware. In fact, we just had a pin pad go out in Roseau, and here I am driving up there to first see if it works. Okay, no, it doesn't work. Now I got to get a replacement pin pad. So now I got to drive up there and replace the pin pad. I just send it to the store and have them drive 5 minutes over to, Denny's Outdoor Sports and replace their pin pad. Um,
Yeah.
so much more cost effective. Um, so the idea is to have the kind of the stores as the foundation, and at least a break even, if not a little bit better. But I'd be happy with break even for the store because then you've got somebody local and a local presence and a local recognition, which then when you talk to someone about merchant services just makes the deal so easy. It's like, well, we're just around the corner. So if something breaks, right? And also, we're not going to screw you over because we're around the corner, right? We don't
Mhm.
want a bad reputation in town. So it really just ties it together and makes the sales no-brainers. It's so simple, right? Just about anybody who in town would say, "No, I'd rather use this guy who called me out of the blue, from
Right.
Texas or California or who knows where, and says they're merchant services." And, who's going to trust that when you got somebody around the corner,
Yeah.
right? So
Nobody. You're taking over
nobody.
the market. And I think it's brilliant
Yeah,
and I love it.
yeah.
It's
So that's the
it's
strategy.
this, you know, everybody talks about how you've got to be vertical specific in
Mm-hmm.
payments and you got to be super niche. And usually they're talking almost always talking about a software solution or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Right.
love how you're going kind of full circle on that. Like saying, no,
Mm-hmm.
actually.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing this a long time. Retail is the way to get in here, actually scale. And it is true scale because you're scaling this small town model. You're
Mm-hmm.
paying for your support network
Mm-hmm.
and getting those relationships in, and doing it in a really unique way. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. 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 It to me it just makes sense. And I'm starting to think of each town basically as my sales rep,
Hmm. Hmm.
instead of a sales rep trying to be out there doing it. To me, adding towns is like adding sales reps. Because essentially the person in the store is my local ambassador and my sales rep, right? Because
Right.
I didn't mention that, but that's the other piece of the strategy is then, because historically it's all been me, right? I go in the door, I'm a nice guy, I'm around the corner. It's a little bit harder when you're, the farther away from home that you get, the less local you are. So then people start looking at you more and more skeptically. But so what we're doing is the store manager in that town is going to have the list of the businesses in town and be reaching out and making regular contact. You need printing, you need shipping. And oh, by the way, we do technology also, all your point of sale systems. And I didn't mention it, but obviously the point of sale systems run on a network. And if your network's a Walmart router, you probably need to have that replaced.
Yeah.
Um, and most likely it's a Walmart router that they bought 20 years ago that they're
Yep.
running on in
Yep.
a rat's nest of cables that nobody ever has actually managed. So there's a lot of network management opportunity there too. But those local, the store owners making those calls, making those connections, and then it all becomes very, very local. And then when something breaks, they're not calling me.
Yes, that's the best part about it.
That is going to be the best.
Stop into the store. We'll
Uh,
help
uh,
you.
yeah, yeah. Well, they're going to be used to talking to the store manager, the person who's in the store, and they're not going to even have that relationship with me. That's like the biggest struggle, right? Because it's a very personal business. How do
Yeah,
you scale a business that's so personal? Um, that's hard. That's really
really
hard.
hard.
And I'll take a little digression back into my real estate days, right? Because it's the same problem in real estate, right?
Mm.
I had 35 agents. They're all running out there, but they're forming the relationships. And then they get pissed at me over something and they give notice and they go switch to my competitor and they take all their business with them, right? And I walked away from that business going, never again, right? Never again am I letting somebody else control that customer relationship. So
Mhm.
that's kind of the insight that I brought to merchant services. It's like if there's one thing I'm going to own, it's that customer relationship, one way or the other. And it's or if I'm going to delegate it to a store manager, it's something that they can't walk away with.
Right, right. And so, okay, I have two questions. A lot of interesting things there.
Yeah,
First, I guess on that comment, you want to own the relationship.
yeah, yeah.
It's interesting, and it shouldn't be because it's logical and it makes sense.
Right.
But I've talked to so many agents and ISOs now
hmm
who are, again, you come back to this idea of scale. We want to get bigger. We want more merchants.
Right.
Then the support becomes an issue. So
hmm
they're like, no, I'm just signing the accounts. Like my processors, my ISO relationships are going to handle support. But
hmm
then they end up never talking to these merchants again.
Again, right. And
Right.
you've lost the relationship.
And you've lost the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I agree with you there
Yeah.
that there's something a little broken about that, I think.
Well, I
It-
think you make a really good point, right? I mean, I encourage, and I have my whole career. It's like when something breaks, you call me. You don't call the processor, right? You don't call your POS company because I tried that. It's really easy to kind of think, oh yeah, God, I'll just delegate, just let them call so and so. But but then they get a bad experience. You don't even know that it happened, and the
Yeah.
next thing you know, you've got an angry person. You don't even know what happened. Right?
Right. Yeah.
You walk in the door and they're mad at you, and you don't know why. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's where, it's call me, I'll make the call.
Yes.
It's more work, but the thing is that I want to make sure that they're calling me when they've got a problem and not somebody else, and that I know when they've got a problem. Um, it's very rare for us to say, could you just call so and so directly? I mean, we'll do it on occasion, but if I do, I always say, and call me back afterward and tell me how it went so that I know, where it stands.
Yeah.
But that,
Yeah.
but that's the other problem when you delegate to agents running around out there in the field is suddenly you don't even know what's going on anymore. And I don't know that so much in merchant services, but I know it in real estate. Um, and there's some crazy ass stuff that went down,
Tell me
that
what happens in real estate. I mean, they're just going out doing whatever they want, or
Oh yeah, I had an agent who was this is a sideline, but former Minneapolis city inspector, so he knows what he's
oh,
doing, right?
yeah.
Now
Yeah.
he's retired from city inspecting. He's a real estate agent. His buddy was selling his house, so what they did is they built a bathroom in front of the well room, and so instead of capping the well as they were supposed to, they just built a new bathroom in front of it and they built a deck over the top of it so nobody could know that the old well was there. And then they sold the house. And, a couple of years later, the new owner discovers that there's an unsealed well on their property hidden behind the bathroom and under the deck. And of course, by then, the agent's not even working for me anymore, and me as the broker am holding the bag.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so I mean that's the
Wow.
other thing from a liability standpoint. Don't do real estate. Don't be a broker. You have all the
Not doing
liability,
it.
and also with the agents is just it's just there's too many other players and something can always fall through. That's why I like merchant services because there's not too many other players. If I got a deal, then I got a deal. There's not a lot of other people in the mix, a title company and
Oh,
the other
right.
agent and everything like that who can mess it up because that was my
Mhm.
problem in real estate is that, I do all the work, I do everything right, and the deal still wouldn't go through because somebody else, messed it
Somebody
up.
else dropped the
Anyway,
ball, and you can.
not a big fan of real estate
All right, we're
from
not going back
experience.
there.
We won't go there. Yeah.
Good for anyone listening.
But it really does dovetail into this conversation because I love real estate. Um, and so that's why this strategy works really well for me because I
Uh-huh.
love finding real estate deals, right? But now I'm finding them for me. I'm not
Yeah.
finding them for somebody else and getting
Uh-huh.
paid this much commission off of it. Um, when I found the building in Roseau. I've got a building in Red Lake Falls right now. We haven't opened yet. But to me, that this is how then I get to still play with my real estate experience and now is with the store growth strategy. So it, I'm still putting it to use, but I'm just not going to be a real estate agent.
Well, that is a good point because you're having fun with other aspects of the business
Yeah.
too. And now you're going to be a huge real estate
Well, I'll
owner.
I'll tell you that
And
the dream and I is if I can build the business enough so that I love small towns and I love real estate. So I would really love to just be driving around to these and visiting these small towns, finding a great property deal, especially if it's a nice old building that needs some rehab, put some
yeah.
money into it,
Hmm.
open a new store, move on to the next town and do the same thing. That would be really fun. If I could be doing nothing but that, that would be that's kind of where I'm hoping for. But I'll build a bigger team before that all happens.
Oh, wow. I mean, that sounds so cool.
It would be cool.
It'd be really
Yeah.
cool.
I
And
tell
there's,
people when I was a little kid, I used to just grab my bike and just ride around every street in town. This is one of these things you got to understand just um, where your zone is, right? What just do you just love to do naturally? And ever since I was a kid, I just love taking my bike and exploring. So now I can take my car and explore, and that would be my I can just go back to childhood and with money,
yeah,
except this time
with so
this
much
time
more
with money.
agency. Yeah. You're like, oh, this is nice. I can actually do something about
And
this.
I could actually buy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, anyway.
I want to circle back to, and it does relate to your real estate days a bit. The part of it that you didn't like, but so with your agents, the big thing you didn't love was they're going out and doing things you don't know about, things you don't
Hmm.
love that,
Yeah.
reflect
Yeah.
poorly on you.
Yeah.
I want to dive into a little bit, what does it take to train these store managers that you have that you're
Hmm.
putting in there? Are you
Yep.
hiring locally? Are you
Yeah.
bringing in? I mean, that
Yeah.
would make sense probably, but how
Right.
long does it take them to get up to speed? Because I
Well,
imagine most of them don't know about
no,
payment.
no. Well, and this is the thing is that the reality is that, um, at least for a field person, they don't really need to know the technology at all. For the most part, what I need is eyes and hands. Because of the technology today, point of sale systems we can remote in. The credit card terminal is a little harder. That's why you almost need eyes and hands. Um,
Hmm.
but most of the store owners that we work with are just not technical at all. So I can't even, talk them through something. I mean, you tell them to push some button and they push the other one, you know. Um, so so I just want a store manager with minimal tech, at least comfortable with technology, right? You don't have to know. But then, we just basically train them to run the store, the printing and shipping, which is all pretty much standard sort of stuff. The printing is all centralized in Thief River, so they don't need to know the details of that. They just got to be an order taker, really.
Hmm.
Um, and the shipping's pretty much the same. You take an order and ship the package. It's pretty standard stuff.
Pretty
So the
straight.
thing is though, then they we don't need to train them a whole lot on the technology, but they'll just learn by
I
doing,
do it. Yeah.
right?
I've
You
done
know,
this 6 times.
go over there, look at it, and after they do it once, twice, three times, now they know that, oh, VX520, the password's one alpha alpha 66831.
Yeah.
It just comes after rote. But they don't need to, because they can get me on the phone or our support on the phone, right? And we can remote into any point of sale system with credit card terminals. But even it's a lot easier to ask the store manager to FaceTime than it is the customer, right?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
that was the thing is like if I can just get the customer to FaceTime me or something so I can see what they're seeing, it makes things so much easier to support. But you know, what do I do? What button? I, just talking them
If
through that is painful.
if you can even get them on the phone like that, it's so hard. It's
Oh, it's so
so hard.
hard. So
Yeah.
yeah, so even a store manager, we can train them on FaceTime and then we can pretty much do anything. So,
Got it. So they're there as a, yeah, they're just
uh,
hands. And then
eyes and ears and
they
hands.
call you and you know how to fix it.
Right.
And
And then after they
yeah.
do it a few times, right? I mean, that's the way we all learn
Hmm.
ultimately, is that's the only way I learned is just started doing it. But,
Yeah.
it dovetails a little bit into, the whole thing with agents. A lot of times, I think the mistake a lot of agents make is that then they have their customer directly call tech support, but, they don't sit in on the call because
Uh,
that's really a problem, right? Because
mhm.
if you don't know how it got solved last time, then the next time you see the same problem, you're just saying, "Oh, call tech support."
Yeah.
But if you actually sat in the call, then you'd be able to solve it in 2 seconds instead of, all the drama of calling tech support and being put on hold and the customer getting upset and right? A lot of these things happen again and again and again, right? There's
Yeah.
certain things on certain terminals that the buttons are just set up so that you keep making the same mistake, all over again. So
Mhm.
I think that's probably a secret in there, which is, that I always was on the phone with my customers, with those support calls, learning what to do because there's so
I
much of
think
it's
that's
just
the
difficult.
key point here is learning. You
Learning,
have
right?
you have to want to learn,
Yeah.
and that's what's gonna set you apart later,
Oh,
which is
speaking of learning though, too, is most people don't even understand how merchant services work, right? Or
what do you mean by
a
that?
lot of agents out there, they don't understand the pricing, or anything like that. It's like, oh, I'll just do this standard pricing, but you don't understand how it actually works,
How it all comes together, what goes
right?
into
Right?
that. Yeah.
Or what you can do, flat rate is, with cash discount is the right thing for this person, but this person we're going to put them on a traditional, structure. That's one of the first things that I taught myself was how that all pricing worked because, at least the processor I was working with at that time preferred me to be stupid because they wanted me to call in, and they would do all the pricing and
We'll
then
tell you how to price
yeah,
this.
we'll just tell
Don't
you
worry.
what to write down on the
Yeah. Yeah.
application, right? That's how I started, and I'm like,
Hmm.
you know, uh, you know, why am I writing down, you know, 0.50 in that field? I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Is this, and you're
you,
like,
I,
oh, it's only 50 cents. It doesn't matter. But then
yeah,
it adds up.
yeah,
It's because it's an auth fee or something. And you have no idea. Your customer calls, like, what the hell happened here?
right,
You
right.
know?
I think that's a lot. It's kind of funny because it goes back to the day where I was sending all the statements in for, analysis, and then I'd get it back and I just tell them, here's the deal. Look at how much money you save. But, is it real? And how much easier is the sale if you can actually just look at this? That's how I do it today. Obviously, I go in and okay, there's probably at least $50 here. What do you say? You know, sign up. And
Yeah.
and I'm in the next town over or around the corner. So,
And you see
if
their heads explode as you just understand this. different language that they've never been able to get a grasp.
Yeah, I mean, though, yeah, we all know those statements are not set up for a customer to understand what's going
Oh,
on.
it's
They're
purposeful. Yeah.
intended to obfuscate
Uh-huh.
the reality of what's going on. They have no idea what charges are real and which are just, fluff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, being able to look at a statement and just be able to immediately say it's 50, $100 a month, $10 a month, you got a great deal here, as long as you got a good relationship, I wouldn't do anything with it, right? Sometimes you're honest like that,
You have to be because
right?
yeah, sometimes there's nothing you can do. It's fine,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Unless you like my service, in which case, I'll match these rates
Yeah, we
and
can match.
maybe I'll slip in an extra 10 cents somewhere without,
Yeah.
you know,
But
just
I'm
give a
here.
little more.
I'm in your town.
Right.
So
Right.
you can pay for that service. I
Yeah.
think that's an important point too, though,
It
that
it kind of is because I will, increase the rates a little bit on somebody, but I give better service. So, I don't see a problem in that at all. I mean, you got to charge what you're worth ultimately.
yeah, you
Um,
do. And
you
there's
can't
a
work for
whole
pennies.
yeah, I mean, there's a definite value in having someone in your corner. And also though, I think the fact that it's okay to pass on a deal is lost
Mhm.
on some people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was for me too. I mean, when you're first starting out,
Yeah,
especially,
you're so
you
hungry.
you, you feel like shit if you have to pass on a deal.
Right.
You don't want to, you feel like you failed, but and it's been kind of a common theme, on the first few of these podcasts that
Hmm.
let those ones go that you can't help and focus on the ones that you can.
Hmm. There's I've spent a lot of time just recently. I joined a peer group in the managed or merchant services business, where they're doing the networks and everything. And one of their metrics is the all-in seat price, or how much you're charging per station in a network. And I've started looking at my business in terms of how much, if this person has two terminals and I'm getting $500 a month off of them, then it's basically a 250 per terminal rate.
Mhm.
And when I first started doing this, my average per merchant was about 140 or something,
Oh, wow.
and now I'm up to about 240 per merchant. So, this is how I look at it. So it's not just the merchant services, but also am I getting other services off of them? But I want each relationship to be worth, I'd really like to drive that up over $300, even for the small bars and everything like that. I think I can do that between merchant services, doing a network for them, selling them printing services. So that's kind of how I watch and run the business. But it's a really important metric. I mean, when I got into the business, I remember the first videos I watched was like, you can earn $15 per merchant. And I'm like, wow, that's great.
$15.
Um, and then I
That's
didn't
a
even
month.
get 15. I wasn't even getting $15. I was getting like $5 a merchant because we're
Oh,
just going out there, on cost, right?
and
On
just rock bottom.
yeah, yeah, quoting
Yeah.
everybody on, we'll save you $50 a month, but then I'm not making any money. I'm like,
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
the heck? I think I was getting $12 a month a merchant. I'm like,
Oh my God.
oh, this is gonna take a lot of merchants to make this
Yeah.
worthwhile.
Yeah, it's not gonna
Um,
work.
but with a POS service then too, right? Yeah, I can add in $100 a month for support or whatever like that.
Oh, gotcha.
Right.
That
And the
helps. That helps
and
a
the
lot.
other way I did it, just the statement fee on the if they just got a credit card terminal and everything like that. I think
Hmm.
I used to have like a $5 statement fee. Now I'm up to $25 statement fee. Um, just because. And then I think I just added in on another $15 a month compliance fee, to help them with PCI.
Yeah,
It adds up.
you have to do that.
Just got to watch your pricing.
Well, part of that though, I think is just and this is any industry, and I think smart pricing, right? You kind of push the bounds of what the market will absorb.
Hmm.
And you're kind of finding your value. And
Right.
I'll bet you haven't gotten there yet. You'll probably
No.
see more and more. And it's not just adding products into their mix. It's how much do they care about what I'm providing for payments specifically, and $100 a month, that's well within that value range.
Right. Well, for everyone in Rosa right now, I just
Yeah.
changed the response time from the minimum of an hour, which is how long it would take for someone to drive there, to 5 minutes.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. So now it's
so
instant.
yeah, so our value in that town just increased significantly,
Mhm.
and so that's where I expect our merchant services sales to increase in that town because I had a number of restaurants up there that have been poached in the last few years, and
Oh,
I intend to get those back.
you're gonna get them back now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I
nobody else can compete with the store around the corner.
no, and okay, a great segue into we've got about 10 minutes left and
All
what I
right.
want to ask you at the end. So, most agents out there can't go and open some retail stores and tomorrow, right?
Right. All right. No, no, that's not going to happen. Yeah.
So, what would you say? I mean, what would your advice be based on your experience, what you've learned from this? What
Hmm.
would your advice be to someone who loves what you're doing,
Hmm.
can't necessarily copy that model,
Hmm.
um, but what could they do differently to kind of win in the same way?
Well, I think that's a really good question.
Hmm.
And I think I mean, most people aren't as rural as I am also. So, I mean, and so if you're in the cities, if you're in a higher population area, right? I mean, I would just really focus on that neighborhood, right? Because you got so much opportunity in that neighborhood. And why drive an hour if it could be 5 minutes, right? So I mean, to me, right now, my book of business, I'm way overextended. I mean, I've got customers that are, 2 hours away and I
Oh,
can't service them well. And it just it gets and it takes so much time, right? But I can't get it a whole lot more focused just because I don't have the population density. But I would say that definitely for one thing. But I think a lot of people chase the really big dogs too,
hmm.
and there's just so much, well, especially like the bars and restaurants with point of sale systems. I mean, the competition is fierce there.
Yeah.
Um, and and the more technology you throw in there, more phone calls you're getting, right? I mean, you
Hmm.
look at the number of tickets, support tickets off of a point of sale system versus a credit card terminal. I mean, those credit card terminals are just golden. They're like
Yeah.
little robot slaves working for you out there 24/7, and take
Uh-huh.
very little support.
Right.
Um, so I would just run with credit card terminals all day long, if I were to start all over again. The problem is, I mean, be clear, the problem is the industry curve is going towards, point of sales are getting so cheap that ultimately you can't just do credit card terminals because you're just going to keep losing them to point of sale, integrated
Hmm.
point of sale system. So, I can't just say that, but I would say just, you know, you got to keep it so you can maintain the relationship. Maybe that's the crux of it, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it takes to maintain that relationship, and don't overextend past the relationships that you can maintain.
Hmm.
Um, and and maybe I'm thinking this myself. This is actually really great thinking. I'm gonna apply this myself,
Write
right?
this down.
Yeah, I'm going to write this down for myself, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to know, okay, what's my capacity, right? This is
Hmm.
just basic capacity planning.
Yeah.
What's my capacity? What does my current book look like? And maybe I need to clean out some of these,
Uh,
loser ones in my book and replace them with better ones.
hmm.
And just, and maintain your book, but know your capacity. I think that's uh, really because I had some technicians running around, so I felt like I could, just grow crazy, and we had techs running everywhere, and it was just chaos, and nobody was happy.
Well,
So be careful
be
and
careful.
grow within your capacity. Know your capacity and grow within your capacity.
Yeah,
Know your focus.
just like I liked the, you know, small pond, right? Be the big fish
Yeah.
in the small
Big fish
pond.
in a small pond. That's why I love these small towns, man. I'm the biggest fish around.
Yeah, you
Feels
are.
good.
And
I
I
move
think,
into some city and I'm a nobody.
well, I think you made a good point there too, which is, I live in Los Angeles. It's a
Mhm.
big city,
The
but
big city.
maybe more so than other places because we're just sprawl. There's
Right.
so many small communities
Yeah,
within Los
find
Angeles.
your pond. Yeah.
Yeah, don't feel overwhelmed because you live in New York City and you're like,
Yeah.
this, can't
Yeah.
find a small pond here. You can, right?
Right.
Your block, start on your block. You know all those
Hmm.
people. You go in those stores.
Well,
And that's
uh,
really
espe
important.
especially in the cities, the ethnic communities. I mean, that's something that I can't leverage out here,
Right.
but boy, once you get into a community like that,
Hmm.
that's again, it's kind of like my small town, right? You know where to find me, and you guys as a community are going to tar and feather me. So,
Yeah.
you just maintain that relationship.
I'm not crossing you. Not
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
it. I heard a good story about that actually. I was just at Northeast Acquirers in Boston the last couple
Hmm.
days, and someone was telling a story just like that. There was a community, not the community, I forget what city he was in, but he saw that they were all business owners, and
Hmm.
so he spent 5 years courting this one guy.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna win you. And
Hmm.
finally he did. And then once that happened, it opened the door to that entire community. And he
Right,
got all the businesses just from that
right,
one guy's word. I
right.
think that's really, really
Who's
powerful.
who's that key person or
Yeah.
business that the others will follow. It's the same in these small towns because as soon as you get one, the others will all fall into line.
Hmm.
um you know
They talk. They're all together.
they out there all talking all day
Yeah.
long, right? So yeah, find the community where people are talking. That's that's where the niches work too, right? Oh, we do doctors' offices, or we do this, or we do
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Um, because they're talking. But if you can find a community where people are talking, that's a really good place just to run. And but again, just understanding that it is a relationship business, and so you got to find a place where you can leverage your relationships as much as possible, and make sure that they stay strong. But if you're just selling, dumping, and running, um, you just got to resell those all the time because you're going to keep losing them.
Yeah. It's not viable long
Mm-mm.
term.
There's too many people just calling and saying, "Hey, well, oh yeah, I work with Scott, but I got lower rates."
That's a call you would dread.
I do. We have yeah, there's a furniture store. I noticed he wasn't processing. I didn't see any processing for the last month. I called him up. He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I called your company and they told me that they didn't know who you were and they sent me a new terminal." I'm like, "Dude, you didn't call our company."
Oh no.
No.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. They just
Someone,
lied. They just lied to him.
um,
Yeah.
I mean, quick story. I know we're kind of, but it just reminds me of this, and I heard it, and I won't say who I heard it from.
Yeah.
An agent who is actually very successful now. Um, and I don't condone this in any way, but I find it a little bit funny now. The To get his start, and this is very sketchy, and it reminds me of your furniture guy.
Yeah.
He would go into businesses with a terminal that he had
Mhm.
pre-programmed, and or he'd go in and say, "Hey, he'd know who the terminal provider was. I'm
Mhm.
with Deja Vu,
Yeah.
I got to clean your terminal and,
Jeez.
maintenance it." Kind of like he's kind of like the Grinch, right? When he's
Yeah. Yeah.
stealing Christmas, I just gotta take your
Yeah.
tree and I'll bring it right back.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
swaps the terminal to
Yeah.
hit,
Yeah.
and then the merchant doesn't know either
Away they
way.
go.
And
Yeah.
he's just it's
Yeah.
there's so many layers of sketchiness out there.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know
It's a
that you could
dirty.
get away with that today. It was a long
Oh
time.
yeah, you can. Yes, you certainly can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I tell them, my customers too. It's a dirty business.
Hmm.
So the bar is pretty low. I just have to be, honest with you 90% of the time, and I'm
Yeah.
still way
And
better.
you're way, way in that like
Yeah,
point
no,
one of the
they
one.
understand, that I'm joking, but yeah, it's just the bar is pretty low. You just got to be a decent person, and people will stick with you.
That's a really good takeaway. We could end there. I think we have two takeaways that I love from this.
Yeah.
Scott. First, be a decent person and you win.
Hmm.
Second, find a niche, and that's played out and it's jargon, but
It
I
is.
think today what we've found is that you can be very creative with what your niche is. So don't be boxed
Yeah.
in by
See, I
your software niche, or you've got to be
right.
whatever
I
that.
think that's a big thing. People hear niche, they think, "Oh, I've got to do this type of business." But a niche can be geographic, it can be a professional association, it can be a networking group, right? It can be all sorts of things. Yeah.
So keep an open mind
Yeah,
and
keep
just
an open mind
look for what that is.
and jam on what you're good at
Yeah, and have
and,
fun,
and
right?
have fun.
Yeah,
Yeah. If it's not fun, it's not worth it.
that's right.
That's why I tell people I'm still having fun. So as soon as it's not fun anymore, then I'm done.
There you go. Same here. I got
Same, right?
yeah.
Why would I retire? Well, then, unless it's not fun anymore.
And there this is an industry too that people stay in for a long, long time, and I think it's
Yeah.
because they have fun and it's
Yeah.
they meet good
Well,
people and they go.
yeah, why would I sell out my book of business and walk away? I mean, be a good payday, but why would I do that?
Yeah, what are you
It
gonna
just,
do?
it, yeah. Yeah, then what? Uh,
Well, all
having
right,
too much fun.
Scott.
Yeah.
This was an amazing conversation. Thank you
Great.
so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I hope, we can talk again soon. And thank you everyone for
Yeah.
listening.
Well, I had fun too. I
Yeah.
hope we didn't give away too many secrets.
Well, you gave us everything. Really cool.
All
If you
right.
want a franchise, contact Scott.
Yes. Um,
He'll
yeah.
uh he'll set you up.
Yeah. If I'm looking for some franchise funding right now.
Uh-huh. Oh,
All right.
there we go. We could get that going for you too.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Scott.
All right.
We'll
Take care,
talk to you
Michael.
soon.
Bye.
Mhm.
Bye-bye.
Bye.